come out of executive session?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McGee, seconded by Ms. Alves. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. President, does the record show that there were no votes taken and let the minutes be sealed?
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zelinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes. Okay. Coming back to the agenda, there's two items that are left on the agenda under new business. New business A, discussion by council vote or other action on award of bid for public building review project proposals. It's listed under my name. So we talked about this at a few previous town council meetings, that we would be coming forward with a recommendation. The Public Facilities Advisory Task Force met last in September and delegated the responsibility of reviewing proposals to a subcommittee of approximately 6 people. And that group met, that also included myself, the town administrator, the town planner, a representative of the school facilities department, and other members of the task force. So we received 5 proposals, and we're going to, one of them, the one that was recommended was in your packet, but I just wanted everyone to have a copy of the summary sheet of all the proposals received. And so these were scored, and the recommendation was to hire RGB to conduct this review. The goal of this phase of this work is to come back with a vision for how best to use the spaces that the town needs, and to put an order of magnitude cost on renovating the facilities as needed and as recommended, so that we can put it before the voters to have them decide whether we do or don't do this. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about it, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought the task force was supposed to be doing this. I thought that's what their job was to do this, not to hire it out.
Actually, I don't have a copy of the resolution with me, but I can call it up on the computer. The resolution that created the task force did say that at the appropriate time, that the task force would be requesting professional services, architectural engineering services, to actually crunch the numbers so that we could present something more definitive to the town for a vote. There isn't the requisite expertise. We knew that going into it, to evaluate buildings for code and so forth. And if this building, for example, were going to house both town administration and school administration, there's a need to reconfigure the classrooms, put walls up, and that all needs to be evaluated and have a price tag put on that. So and coming forward with this wasn't a surprise to me. In fact, when we set the budget in June, we did create a new line item in the budget called contingency infrastructure, which I always thought would be the appropriate place to cover this cost. Mr. Erickson, you were on the selection review committee.
I just wanted to note, in response to Councilman McGee's comment, that as an example, you have a rafter system up at the top of Kendall Dean. Building code was different back then. You need to know what the species of the wood is, what the span is, what the condition of the wood is, how wet it is. All those things require a PE, and all of these firms recommended subcontractors who were PE, structural engineers, electrical engineers, and that kind of stuff. It's way beyond the ability of anybody on the committee.
The other thing is, I think that this is, I don't want to put anything before the town that doesn't answer all the questions that need to be answered. And And so, for example, there's the ongoing question about what to do with Hallowell, the whole Hallowell problem. I think it's a safe bet that we won't see a new school get built, but this process, working with this firm, will get us to that answer. With the school committee and the school administration through the superintendent is on this task force, and I have every expectation that the final recommendation that comes to the council for consideration is going to address that issue, as well as address the administration space needs issues. It's going to be comprehensive, but we can't do it without the expertise of a firm like this.
So we didn't, I just don't understand, we didn't do anything like, I would have thought the task force would do something like have some ideas of what we would do.
Yeah, well, actually,
Not just handing it over to,
Yeah.
you know, like, have something. What's the task force doing? Why don't we just hand it over to them right away?
task
And forget
force
the task force.
is-
I'm confused on
The
that.
task force is, their purpose is to evaluate some of the value judgments about what, does it make sense to, I mean, the big question was, did it make sense to put the school and town administration in the same building? You can't know the answer to that without going through that process. So I'll pass to you in this direction, and this direction. This is a sample chart. There's another one that Jeff has updated with 3 additional options. These are some of the things that the task force has been grappling with. So, we have on this chart here a list of the 16 buildings we said we're going to look at. We have option 1, option 2, option 3, and when we look at Memorial Town Hall, what are the options for how to use that space, highest and best use? What about this facility? And then, so once we cross the threshold of getting consensus from the school and from the administration that they would prefer to be located in the same facility if we could, if we could reconfigure the space. That was the job of the task force, was to answer a lot of those questions. Talk get the input from the police department. If you had New Druthers Police Department, where would you most prefer to be in this town? And the fact is that they said they prefer to be right where they are, because they're in the center of activity. Many of their calls are in that part of the town. And prior to having this task force discussion, I couldn't have told you whether the school administration preferred to be here, or whether they preferred to be actually on the school campus, or whether they preferred to be in Bushy School. We had discussions with the police department about, how would you use Bushy School if the town administration wasn't in that space? Well, first we've got to move the cells out of the basement. That addresses a code issue. Second is it opens up the opportunity to relocate the courts with the police department. Makes good sense. They provided that input. So those are the kinds of value decisions that were being made by the task force, because the task force was made up of people from Parks and Rec and zoning and planning and park and redevelopment agency, economic development commission. And so we've had those discussions. Now we need some expertise to crunch the numbers and say, can we make it fit here? What would we have to do to make this accommodate school and town administration? Would it require an additional, a small addition out of the building? Yes or no? Can we utilize the what do you refer to it as, Bob? Not the basement, but what is that first sub-level?
I call it the raised ranch first level.
The raised range first level.
And they tend to be underused. But here it's a dry area, has good lighting from the windows. And the first thing I said is, we can get more space in here. I'd be glad to put planning department in one of these areas. It will work.
This is a process that is going to take us for many years into the future. This is not a situation where we're bringing in, where we're going to put paint on things or fix things one-off. This is looking at it in a comprehensive way. I think we have some structural issues potentially at Bushy School with the facing of the building, and it's going to look at those issues, it's gonna look at code issues, and they're gonna come back to us with some proposals for, this is how it can fit, and this is what it costs to do it. Do you wanna do it or not? And I just wanna be able to get to the point where we can put something before the town election, and say, here's the vision, if you like it, and you agree with the bond amount, you can vote yes. If you don't want it, we can vote no. And at least we've asked the question, and people have a chance to decide based on the. So that's where we're at. If anybody wants, I can call up the resolution where it specifies that the task force would be moving forward to seek the council approval to hire a firm. I can do that.
Mr. President. I don't know.
Mr. Yazbat.
If you want to go through, I think the selection of RGB is commendable. I have personal knowledge of working with at least a couple of these people, specifically Mr. Quattro, who's a partner and a principal there, as well as one of the other gentlemen. They did a fine job for the town with the middle school and that whole process, so the committee's recommendation is RGB, which I'm pretty sure it is. I know the town if town council wants to go forward, I know the town would be well served with that firm. They've done an excellent job, personally. And Mr. DeQuatro actually lives in town, and he takes I know he takes a vested interest, takes it very personally, because he realizes, he lives here too. So.
I will tell you that personally, going into the process, I was thinking it would be actually good to have a different set of eyes on this than the firm that built the middle school. Not that they did do a great job with it, but just thought it would be good to have a different set of eyes. But I have to tell you that reviewing the proposals, it was hands down, no question. They just had the right expertise, and we were particularly looking for a firm that has experience working with the Department of Education on stage 1 and stage 2 projects, because some of that work is going to be eligible for reimbursement from the Department of Education
And the
housing formula. So having somebody that understands that process was very important. And
well, like I said, Mr. DeQuatro, Mr. Furlong, I know to be personally, I've worked with them, so.
I have a question, statement. I mean, two meetings ago, we anguished over fleet service and awarding a bid for a few cruisers. And it went to a different auto dealership for a couple of $1,000, and we had the opinion of the police officer who was in charge of the fleet. We're looking at a screen here, and there's a difference of RGB Architects, $46,600. That's in comparison to Blount Bennett Architects for $32,000. Do you have a copy of Blount Bennett and the services they're going to provide?
I've got all the proposals electronically. I can forward them. I do want to point out one significant distinction between the two that you just referenced as examples.
Without having it, I'm speaking blind.
No, I understand.
If I had a copy of that,
The primary difference is the first one that you referenced, the police vehicles, the town was purchasing a product, and the procurement for that is very different than professional services. In fact, professional services doesn't even require competitive bidding. We still wanted to do it, but it doesn't
understand
require
that. Mr. President, I've been sitting here for a while. I do understand the difference in the procedures. But the difference is we're looking at $14,600. So basically, that is my concern. I don't have a problem with Robinson Green Beretta. They brought the middle school in under budget and under time. Okay, under budget, under time. They did a great job. There's no question about the professionalism. I just would like to see what Blount Bennett Architects has submitted to the town. So if you could get a copy of that, that'd be great. Sure. Thanks.
Mr. President, if I can recall that process, I I, like you, had the same reluctance and evaluated RGB last. I will say that the firm that Councilman Zawinski is talking about didn't have anywhere near the experience in the areas that we were looking for, in education or in conversion of historic buildings. There was another one that we thought was very good value. And the process here, the state recognizes that architecture and engineering is a value-based operation. And so the state law basically says, we recognize that, and we recognize that towns need to look for value. So, in my evaluation, they weren't close enough to justify saving that amount of money. And it was basically in terms of experience. It was basically in terms of recognition of what the town was looking for. I would say that 2 applications got it, and 2 applications had extensive experience. RGB was the only one that had both. I'd say that anybody could have done, any one of the applicants could have done a perfectly acceptable job, but in terms of value, I thought RGB stood far and above all of them. Pardon?
One of our members has been patiently waiting while we've been here for this discussion, so maybe Jeff will weigh in.
The only thing that I have to weigh in is what I was talking about, was the fact that I didn't really, the same with Ronald Bennett that he's referring to, is their experience was more with automobile dealerships, if I remember correctly.
One of them, apartments and a healthcare.
Residential
Like 2 minutes of looking at this.
Residential type
Yep.
of things,
Yep.
and they're sort of mainstream. They didn't seem to have the quality of experience of dealing with, like Bob said, historic renovations or reuse, rehab type of, and like Bob was saying, hands down, RGP probably had both. They got it, they know what they're looking for, plus we've also dealt with them before as a town.
Okay, now that I have this, and I've looked at, not that we went out for requests for qualifications, I've looked at the principles that would be providing this, I'm comfortable, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
If I had that.
No, that's why I
wrote
wrote
that
proposals
question
and,
forward.
you know, I know the committee spent hours and hours reading the proposals and deliberating on it, and,
I still have to look at the money, but now I
yeah,
understand
no,
why
it's,
we're getting a better product, thanks.
So, my request this evening is for a motion to authorize the town administrator to execute an agreement, a contract, in consultation with the solicitor, to proceed. I know that they've communicated to the planner that they're ready to hit the ground running, I think, this week.
Yes.
You know, we've talked before about the time frame we're on, and we've sort of backed into some of these decision points with the date of February 14th in mind. February 14th is technically, although not Valentine's Day as well, but it's technically the last day to submit bills to the General Assembly. Can we get a bill introduced later than that? I'm sure we could, but that's the date we started with. And in order to do that, we have to submit a bill in order to have a referendum appear this time next year. And that means that we need to have a company work with us, crunch these numbers, present a proposal, have the council properly vet that proposal, have a public hearing in January, get resident feedback, if there needs to be any changes, there's changes that take place over the next few weeks, and then we're on course to get something introduced by February 14th. So, that's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Yazbek.
I'll second, too, also.
Seconded by Mr. Zawinski as well. Any other questions, discussion, comments?
And it is RGB for $46,600 for record.
If there's no further discussion, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Soler?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff, for your patience in being here tonight. Then the last item of the night is under new business, item B, discussion by council vote or other action on extension of joint resolution for the towns of North Smithfield, Burrillville, Gloucester, and Smithfield. Madam Administrator.
Yes, this is just an extension of the existing agreement we have with Burrillville, Smithfield, and Gloucester. So it'll give us an opportunity to continue for another 2 years with the agreement that we have as an intermunicipal agreement sharing primarily, and as you probably have received, exhibits A and B reference the amount of materials we have and equipment we have and what the cost would be for utilizing each one of them. So it's just exactly the same, nothing has changed. We just want to extend it so we don't have to go back and have, different gyrations.
Question
Yes, sir.
for the administrator?
Yes.
Article, or section, paragraph 5, I guess,
Mhm.
where there's a reconciliation, has, or maybe it's also 4 as well. I mean, have we figured out the costs and just divvied up the money at the end of the year, or were they basically offsetting? In other words, I don't know why it didn't caught my eye when it came before me originally, but I would hope that we're not running up a tab somewhere that's gonna come back to hit us in some future budget year.
No, not at all.
Okay, 'cause, I mean, you basically could run it forward, the way this is worded, but maybe the next time it comes, or the next time there's a discussion, maybe there should be a requirement that everything get reconciled, instead of carrying it forward. And then, I have no problem renewing it now, because we're basically renewed it, but as you work on the next one,
Okay, thank you.
it's just, I think it would wreak havoc with our, and with the other towns too.
The others, right.
Yeah.
On that point, I mean, has there been, is there a tracking of, sort of like a, what do you call it, countries do trading, and they have a trading surplus or a trading deficit, is that?
We really haven't had any opportunities to do anything of substance yet. It's really been only available to us if we needed it, and none of us really have executed anything. That's why we're thinking, as time goes on, we may find we need those opportunities, and we'd like to have this in place in the event that we do need it.
And so it's basically 0.5, and we haven't used it to any extent, correct?
Correct.
So is there a motion to approve the extension of this joint resolution for the towns of North Smithfield, Burrillville, Gloucester, and Smithfield?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Yazbek, is there a second? Second by Mr. McGee. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Valensky?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. Motion carries. And is there a motion to adjourn at 9:05?
906. Yes, so moved.
Moved by Mr. Yazbek, is there a second? Second by Mr. McGee, is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I think this